call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meeting Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. Any citizen may address the council regarding items included on the meeting agenda and are asked to complete and submit a speaker card to the clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call a speaker to the podium when the item is being considered. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Wilkin.
Here.
Kaler.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Streisand.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The first item is, under administrative items, is the fiscal year 2025 adoption. Greg, did you want to take that?
Yeah, our first item is consideration of approval of the municipal budget for the city of Seward for the fiscal year 2025 and authorization the filing of the budget forms. I'll just kind of give a brief background. This is our 5th time at a public meeting and everything, considering the budget. We started the process back in April. We've continued that through. Last night we did have what's called as the postcard hearing. We had approximately 40 to 45 members of the Seward community, maybe some members from Milford as well, since they were also at the meeting, attended that. We had 2 people get up and make comment. The first one asked about sidewalk replacement in regards to the sidewalk program in downtown. We noted that most of the downtown items that we'll do will be in conjunction with the red brick replacement. That's what he was getting at is, would you guys do that same deal if you go replace the brick? Are you gonna offer to the adjacent business owners to, if we pay for the cement, will you guys do the labor to replace some of our concrete? And we said if we do one of those, we will make that offer, whether it's within your sidewalk program or not. I think that's just a great time to take care of it. So that was that first comment. The second comment was just a general comment, I would say, about the levy. Kind of an analysis of the levy over history and time, dating back. I showed a slide from 2010 on, and just noted, I guess, a concern with how many years the levy just rides and stays the same. So we had a discussion about that. Noted on years where we have a surplus, the money goes back into the budget for the next year. And if we run a deficit at the choice of the council in that budget year, based on the levy, we bring that kind of rainy day fund down. So other than that, no other questions, comments, or anything. A few people came up to me and asked a little bit more about sidewalk programs afterwards. So thank all of the council members that attended. I appreciate also the county and county clerk Sherry Schweitzer for putting that all together, getting the notices out and seeing it. So anything to add from that from last night, Mayor?
No, I mean, last year's got a little wily because I don't think the people that were there all understood the purpose of this hearing. I think a lot of them were upset about valuation increases, and of course, unless the levy is reduced to offset that, you would see a property tax increase as a result. But like the county assessor doesn't come to these hearings, so if that's the way you're there, I think that the people last year then got more frustrated when they realized that that person wasn't even there. So they were kind of, obviously frustrated for several reasons, and that format doesn't really lend itself to a real deep discussion. We've had 4 of these already, and we haven't had any public comment on the budget itself. But they've had opportunities, but no one has chosen to comment on it. And that's really if they want to impact the budget. and influence the budget decision, that's when they need to get involved in. But I think the real focus tends to be on the valuation and specifically the property tax levy. I don't think people realize necessarily that, you know, the property tax that we collect is a really small portion of our overall budget revenue. And I don't think they necessarily realize that. I mean, you could argue any tax is too much tax, right? But I think there's a misconception out there, maybe because there are other taxing authorities that have larger property taxes, and when you combine them all together, especially if you own a lot of property, that can be a bigger number for that individual. But again, most of the criticisms that you hear every year, some years there are blips where you have a large increase for all assessments, but a lot of times it's in the ag community that really gets hit the hardest on property tax increases because they typically own more ground. We don't have farm ground per se in the city limits, or very little. And so we don't have that segment of the county that would necessarily be upset with what the city of Seward is doing. I don't even recall, did the city of Milford even have any questions?
Nope.
Yeah.
And
so,
their levy remained the same as well. They didn't move theirs either.
yeah. So, other than that, I understand the intent of it, but unfortunately, sometimes things that happen in Lincoln, those decisions are made by a lot of state senators, for example, that have never served in local government before they got to the legislature. They don't necessarily understand how these meetings work. It's kind of like how we had a disclaimer in the beginning about if you want to speak, the intentions are good, but sometimes the way it's implemented gets a little clunky. And so I think there's probably better ways to engage the public, but again, we'll email anyone who wants our agenda ahead of time. You can see the minutes, you can watch the video, you can talk to your representatives. There's a lot of opportunities. It's just I don't think a lot of people necessarily take advantage of those opportunities as regularly as they probably could. But so with that said, that was the meeting last night. And we had several council members there. I don't know if anyone else wants to add your perspectives on it. Especially maybe that was your first one, maybe. I don't know.
I'd been to pink postcard meetings before, and I appreciate that Sherry Schweitzer, the county clerk, got up and was very organized and was very succinct and to the point, and following the letter of the law that was about the state legislature wanted with the pink postcard and stuff, and gave everybody an opportunity to speak. I appreciate Greg getting up. I know he didn't feel 100% and stuff up there, so at one time felt like I could have gotten up to help him and everything and stuff, but got through it in the budget process, and we're trying to do our due diligence and get the most bang for our buck. One comment about the levy staying the same that seemed like it just scooted over everybody's head is there's a lot of different things that we consider every year, things that have been on the back burner for a lot of years, things that popped up, we've got to get done now. We've, Greg alluded to the work on Park Avenue in Bradford this year, and we don't have a choice. Mike, we talked about that at our last meeting, and Mike's under the gun. He's got to get that, Bob and Brandon, they've got to get their work done before the state finishes up. So everything's waiting on them all of a sudden. But there's all kinds of things we consider. Last year we cut out, I think, $600,000 of restrooms for the ball fields and things for the police department, and there was all kinds of things that come up in a budget in this whole procedure, and that seemed to escape people, that you're not talking about things that have been put off for years, sidewalks, different areas, things that we could maybe finally do, and some stuff it gets in that 6-year plan, and it's going to stay in there 60 years, right? So I wish people understood that a little bit more, that there is a lot of
there's a lot of effort and stuff before the mayor gets together with all the department heads and city administrator before they even bring it to us to give us a few options. This is the things we pared down, and these are the things we're gonna put off till next year. And yeah, we don't have an unlimited budget. No one does, but I think we do a really good job with our tax dollar. So I want, I'd like to go on record.
Rich?
I appreciated Greg's continuing message to patrons of Seward about their opportunities to speak up at the 4 meetings held before the postcard meeting, so they have an opportunity to speak up and offer their ideas and considerations. And I think I would also echo that Sherry Schweitzer did a really nice job of keeping that meeting just moving straight ahead as it needs to. But everybody, I think, felt like they could speak up if they wanted to, so.
Well, and technically, there's not really supposed to be a back and forth.
Right.
Well, you can imagine if someone goes there thinking that they're gonna be able to get answers to their questions, and they ask the question and it's rhetorical because nobody answers it, how much more frustrated they're going to be about the process. And that was the frustration last year when people were literally yelling like this is a waste of time because they were there to argue the valuations and other issues that weren't specifically a part of that. Part of the thing with the spending, I think the comment that was made about the levy being the same for a number of years is it's the idea that we have projects that we have kicked the can down the road before. I mean, I know when I first became mayor, Roger Glowitz, the previous mayor, mentioned they had done a sidewalk program type of thing, and that would have been how many years ago, and he warned me against it, never doing one ever again because of the way they did it the last time. They basically required people to put in their own sidewalks, and then those some did and some didn't. And then those who didn't, there was never any teeth, like there was never any consequences. So then the ones who did were mad because why'd you make me spend the money if you didn't make them have to do it? And so I think just the way that program was handled, we're trying to do it in a more of a incentive, more of a carrot than a stick approach. And so, but there have been projects like when Deb Schaefer worked for the city as our clerk before she retired. We had talked about having a splash pad or something along those lines put in, and it was actually one of the council members put it in the budget to have a splash pad. Well, then she retired, and the council member took it out of the budget, and so it's never been done since. And it's one of those things where Milford talked about actually putting in a splash pad that they did put one in. It's just one of those things where as a council, you have to decide, okay, where are the priorities? And, by leaving the levy the same, there might be here we have additional revenue that maybe we can't afford it and it makes sense. Or there's another priority that you come up with. Or there's years, like Greg said, when the revenue comes in short, do you pull from the deficit spending and pull it from the reserve fund to cover it? But I think part of the political challenge is if you're levy, then if you're really being very particular about it, your levy then should move every year, if that's your approach, because the years you have a little bit more revenue, you should lower it a little bit. The years you have less revenue, you should raise it a little bit. Well, you can imagine, we've lowered the levy, 4 times since I've been mayor? No, I don't remember I haven't seen that on Seward Community Chat, praising the council and the mayor for lowering the levy. But if you raise it, absolutely, you're going to see that criticism. And so that's part of the reason I think a lot of communities, because even Sherry Schweitzer mentioned that there's communities that they've had the same levy for like 30, 40 years. Because once they set it, they don't mess with it, and they work within the means of whatever revenue it generates, and they go from there. So, but no, it was just the city of Milford and us this year, and then that was it. Unless there's any questions or additional comments from people who are there. It's pretty straightforward. The first year we went, we didn't have to, we weren't required to be there, but we went, one, to see kind of how it worked, and two, lend moral support to the other entities that were there, and some of them showed up for us last night.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
I don't know what that's all about. Out there. Anyway. Any other questions about that? So for, okay.
Well, just, and a
Yeah.
final on the budget. We've gone over the budget pretty in-depth and in detail, so unless there's anything else on that.
Can we move to approve it, the budget?
Yeah, so the first one will be is a motion to approve the municipal budget, for fiscal year 25 and the filing of budget forms.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yeah. I'd
like to make a
motion.
A motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Good enough. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan. Motion passes.
Item B, that's consideration of the resolution setting the 2024-2025 property tax request for the city of Seward. And this is a resolution, so if there's any other, you're open for discussion, but at some point if someone wants to introduce the resolution, you can do so.
I'll introduce the resolution.
Alright, the resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2024-28. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
The motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan.
Item 1C, consideration of an ordinance to adopt the fiscal year 25 municipal budget, to appropriate sums of necessary expenses and liabilities, to provide for an effective date and include an additional 1% in restricted funds. Again, we're open to any discussion. At some point, I would ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Alright. Is there a title? Alright. An ordinance to adopt the budget statements to be termed the budget and annual appropriation bill, to appropriate sums for necessary expenses and liabilities, which include an additional 1% increase in restricted funds, to provide for an effective date, to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form. The title is hereby approved. Let's see here. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2024-16, and the title is hereby approved, so I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So, second.
A motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan.
This is ordinance number 2024-16. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
I'll move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2024-16 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan.
That's the only ordinance for this evening. I'll need one final motion to make the ordinance a part of the permanent record. We have a motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan. Motion passed.
Alright, next we have a strategy session.
I move that the city council go into closed session with the mayor, city administrator for the protection of the public interest and to discuss real estate interest at the Seward Rail campus and to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance for a period not to exceed 30 minutes.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan.
The council is voted to go into closed session at 7:19 p.m. for the protection of the public interest and to discuss real estate interests at the Seward Rail campus and to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance. No formal action will be taken. We are in closed session.